Good morning, good evening, Kunjani, Halbona. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sappers Unscripted. This is episode Who Cares? We are aiming for our
68,
I don't care. We're aiming for 1,000 subs. 1,000 subscribers, and you'll see a very happy Ginger here. And guys, we're talking about the best documentary ever made in the history of documentaries. And it's called Chasing the Sun. But no, we are talking about Chasing the Sun. Dude, what do you guys think? Oh, firstly, hello.
Okay, listen. This documentary is what Full Contact dreamt of being. Like, that is the best way to put it. Like I mentioned in a previous pod, Chasing the Sun, we got emotion out of it. And with Full Contact, we got Ellis Genge eating a burrito. That is literally what we got out of it. Chasing the Sun, absolutely beautiful. Exactly, and this felt like it was filmed by Netflix, like the world is supposed to see it. Loved every single second of it. Absolutely beautiful. Brevan, you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's like people don't realize how cool it is to relive that story because like we get so caught up after the World Cup dealing with our own things, personal things, whatever. And to be able to look back on the past 5 weeks where we relive that moment or the whole World Cup, it's so special because it reminds you of how much you love Kwagga, how much you love Dion, and how much those guys put in for this country and how much sacrifices. I mean, how much Bongi went through for the stupid thing that happened in the English game. So you got to look at this whole thing and just think how special that group of players are and how much they did for us as a country. So yeah, it was so cool to just relive that whole moment again. It really was special.
Yeah, as we look at the first episode, we're obviously not going to go in order. We're going to talk up and down. We're going to talk, from start to finish. What's going to happen now is we're going to talk about look how red I got.
If you're wondering what's going on, why Brett's struggling to keep it together, it's because obviously this is unscripted and because we haven't spoken about Chasing the Sun at all. I sent a message on our group and I know they're filming on their phone so they can see the pop-up when it comes on WhatsApp. Just like, remember guys, it's a full breakdown from episode 1, from start to finish. Because I thought we're just gonna jump into the deep end and just like talk about the last one. But okay, I'm glad we got that out of the way. So now we know we're talking from the start.
Okay, so as we talking from the start, obviously the Irish game was the most up and down roller coaster ride for everybody, for the Irish and for us. They obviously, for them beating South Africa, it was for them like winning the World Cup. And we saw at the end of the game, end of the press conference, that South Africa was like, oh well, on to the next one. I know Brevan has said it in previous episodes that you only want to focus, that South Africa said they're going to focus on Scotland and then that's it. They don't care about Ireland. It's not relevant for them.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation, right? Because we watched, I think it was in the first episode where we heard Rassie and Jog speak about the there's 4 important games. It is Scotland, quarterfinal, semifinal, final, right? And I don't think the loss to Ireland was or the game against Ireland was a big deal. Okay, but when we saw the reaction of Rassie and Ninower and how they took it out on some of the players, you could see that game meant something to them. Not necessarily the win or lose, but the way that we won or lost that game. Because there was a lot of drama after that game where Rassie spoke about complacency and guys just feeling they're in the team to just be in the team. Obviously, some of the decision-making felt like we were watching the game that didn't make sense. While we know Mani didn't put in his kicking boots for that game, we still went for goal 60 meters out, for instance. So we saw it didn't mean a lot in terms of winning or losing the game, but mentally it would have been a great thing if we put up a solid performance. And Rassie clearly wasn't very happy with that performance. So it was like pretty much contrasting views that we got in the first episode, and I think it was in either the end of the first one or in the second one where they officially spoke about that Irish game.
Yeah. Just from like my perspective, from what I saw is, and obviously they admitted it, like as much as in the beginning of the World Cup, the Irish game wasn't the focus point for Rassie. It was obviously make sure you win that Scotland game, because obviously they're realistic in the fact that they know obviously you can possibly slip up, but we would beat Tonga, we would beat Romania, and they kind of had the attitude that if we slipped up against Ireland, it's okay because we'll still be in a quarterfinal. It doesn't matter who we get, France or New Zealand, we will play them to the best of our ability. But you could see the more that game builds up, you could see, okay, flip. As much as this wasn't the focal point, you could see how much we wanted to win that game before. Obviously, Rassie telling them to make it personal. And the thing is, we always have this. It's come out of something out of the past 2 years. We've had this banter with Ireland, and it's all with good spirit because they're a good side and we're a good side, and but I just think the way we Rassie really took or approached his way of approaching the playoffs after that game, where he started listing players of who would be in the quarterfinal when we got there. And he didn't name names like Sia Khaleesi, Dwayne Vermeulen, and Eben Etzebeth. That is so bold of a coach to do that because he knows those are three guys that can say, listen, pal, like you're telling me I won't be in the quarterfinal, and they'll react with fire. But to throw like your three biggest leadership players under the bus, but still knowing you're doing it in a way that will motivate them, it's just fantastic. And I think that the last thing I'll say on this is the whole that quote he said, I might not get this 100% word for word, but when he said Sia Khaleesi is not bigger than South Africa, South Africa is bigger than or whatever that quote was. That was it hit you in the heart because, and I think he's just such a good guy in his man management, and he does it in a harsh way sometimes, but he gets his point across, and the players know he's just trying to rile them up to be better. So Rassie, his man management has to be studied because that was just amazing.
Yeah, if I have to take anything out from what you just said, what the biggest slip up for me, or the only slip up I can ever think of in the whole career of Rassie, was when he said to the players, he said that we don't need to beat Ireland. It's not relevant. And I think that they still, as we saw, they still trained extremely hard. But in the back of their minds, they were still thinking, well, if I lose, I lose. Who cares? Let's just be better for Scotland. And I think that was the only mind game that he should not have played. Because I personally would have liked South Africa to beat Ireland just to shut them up because their fans are, that one in our comment section, he just can't spell for shit, but he wants to come and take us on. But anyway, anything other to add on episode 1?
I just love the way that Rassie approached it. I agree completely what you guys said in terms of man management, because there's a lot of coaches that take a total different route in terms of motivating or speaking to their players. We saw the video, and I spoke about it in a previous episode as well, where you look at the contrasting way of approach that Andy Farrell took when talking with the British and Irish Lions, and you see the way that Rassie speaks to the Springboks. It's so different in terms of coaching, but like obviously Rassie wouldn't talk to them like that if he didn't understand them. Maybe he feels that is the best way of approaching it with them, because not all players are going to react the same way. I saw a video of Courtney Laws talking to Jim Hamilton, and he said he wouldn't have liked it if a coach spoke to him like that because he's a senior player. He would have preferred to have been taken aside and have it been sorted out personally, like in a closed-off room, and then they can go back out just because he's an experienced player and he deserves that kind of respect. And I'm sure Rassie respects everyone in the team. We saw in the latest episode where he said, listen, he would literally give his life for Bongi. Like he literally got... What vertrouw? What does that mean? he trusts Bongi with his life. Yeah, and I'm sure all the boys trust Rassie and his judgment. So I just love the way that he approached it, because it's so different to what we usually expect from a coach, and especially because it was still in the pool stages. You would expect him to be fired up and stuff when it comes to the quarterfinals and the business end. But I loved seeing that early on. We saw exactly what we can expect from the series, which was absolutely great.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just to add, like, you know what, in a way, as of course, we really wanted to beat Ireland as well, like we really did. Don't get me wrong, because as much as we see their fans as these people that are arrogant towards us, they see us as the same way, and that's the beauty of it all. But what we can take away from this is it's going to set up a great, as we know in July, 2 test series, which is going to be awesome to watch. But also just touching on your point, Casual, before we move on to obviously the second episode, or whatever we hop to. I think that's what makes our players so great, is they are so open with each other. Like you said, Courtney Laws there would want to be pulled aside. Listen, I'm learning very fast in playing in a team at the moment that is so fine tuned in details, and just you who cares about your feelings? Like if if you're gonna get called out in front of your mate, who cares? You're not as big as what you think you are. Like, I don't care if you are like, and this is obviously Sia Kulisi and Eben's attitude, like, and Dwayne Vermeulen. They don't care if they get called out. They need to be called out. And as we saw, those three had friction at a time because they all have different opinions. And Rassi said, listen, you three sort your shit out. Like, this is how life works. So I just like that there's no bigger than the game attitudes in our team. What's so funny?
I do, however, want to say that that's actually a proper level of entitlement from Courtney Laws to think that you get pulled aside. I mean, what? Are you absolutely shitting me? What? In what world?
I'm sure you can't be the only guy that thinks it will be better to not like get called out, right?
Yeah, but I don't care. If you're in a team environment and you need to be held accountable, and to be held accountable must happen in front of the team. That's what creates team chemistry. That is what makes the Springboks the greatest team in the world, because they are held accountable in front of everyone. I think if their wives were sitting there, Rassi would have treated them exactly the same way. Be held accountable and own up to your mistakes, and don't, please call me to the side so my feelings don't hurt, governor.
Yeah, you also added like you wouldn't have minded it if he was like still a youngster, because they usually use like youngsters to almost set the example of what could happen. But I get what you're saying. Like, it just depends on what type of player you are. I'm sure a lot of people will agree they would rather want it sorted out personally. Like if you work in a corporate workspace, I don't want to get in front of my colleagues, but when it's a team game, it's a bit different. But anyway, we can move on to the business end of the tournament. I think that was episode 3, moving on into the quarterfinals. Brett, take us away.
Yeah, I first want to touch base into the Scottish game. Episode 2 when they spoke about the Scottish game, and I felt that we as South Africans gave Scotland too much respect. Like, I don't think they deserve the respect that they got from South Africa. And the whole world, like every single podcast that we watched leading up to that game said, Jim Hamilton included, said he's backing Scotland for the win. This is going to be a big surprise, and Scotland's going to take it. And South Africa's going to be kicked out of the World Cup. Can you imagine that level of ignorance from everybody else in the world? To say that about a team that literally just won the previous World Cup and that just beat the All Blacks by a record score at Twickenham 3 weeks before the World Cup. I mean, come on, get real.
Yeah, Brett, that's a very good point, right? Because the thing is, like, we as fans, we can be cocky and arrogant, and we can write off teams even before a game because we know the players running out on the field, they don't do that. We know they are held accountable. Doesn't matter how bad the team is, they go out there to perform. So it's weird because people were like switching their opinions the whole time. Like I made a long video on another platform talking about flip floppers, because just before that we played at the Mount Smart against New Zealand and we got smashed, right? Especially in the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes, we got obliterated. And people were saying, "Is this All Blacks team looks unstoppable, and this South African team looks so fragile." From there, we went on a winning spree, right? We didn't lose a game after that until we went into the World Cup, and then it's like all of a sudden, this South African team can't be beaten, especially after we whacked the All Blacks at Twickenham Stadium. So then we move into the World Cup, and people literally take that Springbok team that they say looks unbeatable. We absolutely demolish them. They're like 7-1 split, 6-2 split. How are you going to beat this team? And from there, they switch up. Okay, Scotland's going to beat that South African team. I mean, that is seriously almost hypocritical and stupid. I can't think of another word other than saying it's literally stupid. I think the South African team, maybe even in the first half, we gave them some credit. I was very confused with our first half performance, but then watching Chasing the Sun, we got it with Chasing the Sun 1. We saw what the game plan was to absolutely tire out that starting lineup from Scotland, because we knew their bench couldn't hold down or back it up competing against our bench. And we saw what happened in that second half. Absolutely blew them out of the water. I'll give the space to Brevan to talk about Manie Libbok's performance, because they had a couple of interesting words with him. Yeah, well, about his kicking game, and then saying, listen, he had an absolutely brilliant match.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I get where Brett is coming from, in the sense that we gave them too much respect. But at the same time, I think that level of respect was kind of needed, in the sense that we had a game plan, and that game plan was not to go out there and win by 50 points. That was never the game plan. The game plan was, we play a game that's going to keep it tight naturally, and we're going to wear them down, and obviously that's when the bomb squad comes on, and that's when we start pulling away, and that's exactly what happened. So I think, in a sense, I think I get what you're saying, Brett, in the sense that we could have actually played even harder. I do believe that there were parts in that game where we were a bit complacent at times, but ultimately the goal was to get the job done, and then that's exactly what was done. But just obviously touching on Manie, I mean, obviously the kicking off the tee, we know what happened there. I mean, I'm not going to come here and moan about it, because it's happened, it's in the past, and obviously we can move forward. But his overall game, and we say this all the time, is so bloody good for the Springboks and for the Stormers for that matter. He's just, what he brings to a side, and what I can say is, he used to be a Bulls player, obviously, was never a massive fan of him, never really saw anything special. But obviously, being put in the right place in the Stormers, building his confidence, you see a player that has the potential to be world class. Obviously, we might see he struggles with his mental side of things sometimes. He feels a bit of pressure, but that's something that can obviously be worked on. And when he's like on fire and he's rolling and he's doing his thing, Manie can be one of the best 10s in the world, and I think that's what we all see. So, that, especially that cross kick, I mean, that's the flair Manie has. That cross kick to Kirtley, no looker, literally perfectly into Kirtley's hands. I mean, that takes another level of, I'm him, So I think that's what they need to really focus on. Manie, as he has that potential, and I do believe the kicking will come right. I truly do. Whether that be sooner rather than later, let's hope, but we can only see from the future.
Yeah, just to touch base on that point of the cross kick. I don't think you guys understand what level of brilliance that is. Obviously, you got man of the match that game as well, and the people asked the Jogbino, is it a problem that Manie Libbok is not kicking? And his response was, not if he wins man of the match. But I tried that kick. I tried that so many times after that game. I went to the field, took like 12 rugby balls, and I tried to do it. No look kick. I think I touched the ball like 4 times. Never, not even talking about kicking it properly. I mean, my foot just touched the ball and it landed here or there, wherever. The level of skill that went into that, and he did that in a must-win game at the biggest stage in the world at the World Cup. So people
While the
need to
game
show
was still close.
yes, and people need to show that man proper respect, because in most of our comment section we just see people say Mani has cock, Mani this, Mani that. That deserves the respect. Okay, moving on. Episode 3. We're not going to talk about the Romania game, all that stuff, because they didn't. So this was the do or die game that I'm actually quite surprised that they didn't touch base on the fact that DuPont was out for so long and came back. They spoke about it maybe for 5 seconds. DuPont is back, cool, whatever, nobody cares. That's not how South Africa saw it. They saw it as we playing against France, in France, must win. Before you guys carry on, I just want to say that game was the best game Jesse Creel has ever played in his entire career. From amateur rugby to pro rugby to Bulls to whatever team he's ever played for, that game was Jesse Creel's best game ever.
And that's
Go
also
for
where his famous photo came from, right? The one where his face is bashed up and stuff. I know you said you were surprised that they didn't bring up the Pond. I was more surprised by how shit they ended that episode. Cutting an episode into the next episode in the middle of a game.
Yeah.
That is shameless and embarrassing. I was so disappointed. Okay, but anyway, besides the point.
How did they get a cliffhanger? How did they create a cliffhanger when people know exactly what happened? That's how.
I mean, they do well already in terms of giving you goosebumps. We'll get to the England game because somehow I was watching Chasing the Sun thinking, yeah, we're losing this game. But I mean, I don't even know what the result is. But I think this French game literally was the most in-depth that they went with all of it. I love these 2 episodes in terms of the France game. You saw the ins and outs with a lot of players, what the mindset was with the players, the coaches, the aftermath. We'll get to Bongi in a second because that was the big one. Obviously, this is where the drama happened in terms of Dwayne Vermeulen, Ebenezer and Sia Kulisi. And I think it was massive for the boys sitting there in the locker room, not hearing like your 3 almost shoehorn into this team players, like your foundation. Like we know if you build a house, you first build a braai and then the house around it. And they just took out the braai and built a house, which is not the right foundation. And I admired that. It was brilliant because we did like nowhere you would watch the Springboks and think there was a bit of beef between Sia Kulisi and Ebenezer and Dwayne Vermeulen. I just love the way that they went in depth with everything that went on in that game, and we saw the emotion and the pure joy that our boys had after that game, because we reacted that game the way that Ireland reacted after they played us in the pool.
Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget breaking my mother's couch watching that game. It was, I swear, it was that last 2 minutes where we had the lead, and it was just they were attacking, breaking the line a bit, and I'm like they're jumping up and down, and then I ended up breaking the couch. But oh my word, I think it's just and like you said, Casual, the way the in-depth analysis they went into for that game, with Felix Jones going onto YouTube, seeing their training videos, hearing their calls, and then obviously translating it to hear what it means. And it was just that's why we play rugby, because it's like, as much as you think, these rugby players are these stupid guys that just run around and tackle each other, like, no, there's so much more to it. And just also, like, you could see how Eben was just like on the side of the field there, like, please, can I just get, it's the longest 10 minutes of my life, can I just get back on? And then when he comes back on, he goes and he scores a bolt of a try. I mean, it was just so cool to relive. But I think, and I'm glad in the sense that they didn't focus on DuPont. Like, this isn't the DuPont show. This is France, We are playing France. We're not playing DuPont. And I think that was one of the major benefits as to why we won the game is we didn't just focus on DuPont and how do we close DuPont down. We focused on how we shut their backline down. How can we get their forwards to not just wait in the middle of the field, make them run and do that Damien Willems scrum. So, I mean, it's so cool to just relive. So, yeah. So, such an epic episode.
Some of my favorite parts from that episode is where Rassie was so unsure if you could do that. So when he phoned, I think Jaco Piper, and he said to him, or I can't remember who he phoned, one of the refs, that he said to him, listen, are we allowed to scrum if we call a mark? And the ref laughed at him and said, yeah, it's never been done, but it's legal. And then when David Willems said, it's time, everyone was like, what? That was just amazing, and it's going to go down in history because I don't think it will ever happen again. I think there's a rule change now because of that. But also, what I really enjoyed about that episode is when Eben scored and Argia headbutted Eben, and he said that I'm the first person in history to headbutt Eben Etzebeth and get away with it. So, that was one
That's a fight I'd love to see, I'm not going to lie, even though obviously
I love that we finally got an explanation around the scrum that was called around with the mark, because we were wondering, like, what was the decision? Was it just because we had the physical dominance over them in the scrum? But we saw it had nothing to do with that. It's they saw a situation where France just kicks the ball and their forwards don't chase or they stay back or whatever, like in terms of that. And the forwards and the coaches just decided, listen, let's exploit that. Have them kick the long ball and have their forwards walk all the way there just to go and scrum. Like it plays with your mind because you're like, okay, well, we're in a dominant position, but we don't really know what's going on. Like, you are so confused with it all happening. And I just love the fact that we saw little details. And you know what was the most beautiful part about it? Felix Jones picked it up through YouTube videos. Like, I love the fact that we watched YouTube videos around basic training stuff. Obviously, they do game analysis and pick that up as well. But just like basic training videos that teams post on YouTube. And I think it was more focused on the England game and how we somehow figured a way to exploit teams through just their training videos. And I think a lot of teams will all of a sudden think, listen, should we maybe just cut our finances for that one a bit? Should we really be posting all of this stuff on social media? Obviously, like, we go a lot more in depth. So if teams want to see some of our stuff, there you go. It's all on Chasing the Sun. See all our training videos and whatever. But I just love that we spotted minuscule stuff and went with it.
That was now that you mentioned that was every single episode of Chasing the Sun, I was thinking about it. I was like, Chasing the Sun 1 wasn't this in depth. It wasn't so much focused on what the plan is. It was more in focus on
the emotional side.
100%. And now it's like what the plan was. And then now I'm trying to think to myself, now is the mastermind Rassie Erasmus going to change everything again? Because now he's taught coaches how to talk to players. He's taught coaches who gets to say what in the coaching room, who has the most say in the coaching room, what opinions to go with, stuff like that. That's teaching people good stuff. Like, I'm taking tips from that for the kids that I coach. I don't know what just happened. But yeah, so that's the only problem I have with this Chasing the Sun, but it's still the best show in the world. And then, can we move on? Anybody else got anything to say? Next episode?
Let's move on.
But just a quick question to you guys. Do you think, obviously we show so much in Chasing the Sun, and there's the graphic, but do you think that we show too much, in a sense, that like when Ireland come here, they know what to expect, they know how we're going to not prepare for them, but they know the mentality we have so that they can match the mentality?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And the only reason that I say this is because teams kind of already know what to expect with us. Like, they know we're going to come out physically. Whether they want to use the fact that we use our families and stuff to motivate us, fine. I mean, you can know that. Like, we don't care how you motivate yourself. That's the way that we motivated our teams. Other than that, they knew we're going to go physical. with Mani Labok, you're going to try and be more flary with the back line. And it's all up to, and we've saw it in Chasing the Sun. They've mentioned it a couple of times. Just stop us. That literally, because we don't try and hide a lot of things, maybe here and there, one or two things, but it's with the scrum. I don't think we'll do that too often again, calling a scrum off the mark. It's like a one-time thing, surprise you with it. So I don't think that will play too big of a role. I don't think we care too much in terms of hiding moves.
Yeah, I agree, because I thought about this the other day at practice, actually. Before 2 games ago, we were this is going to add on to what you just asked, but because when I called a move, like we changed our move names to like the most basic stuff, like a DSP and a
Don't tell
switch.
me, because we're playing against each other this season, so don't say anything. I don't want to be that guy. Just
no, man. It's no. This was specifically made for that game, so that team can think that it's otherwise. But we did play a DSP, like a dummy switch pop, because we said to them, they can know everything we're gonna do. Let's see if they can defend it. And they couldn't. So that's why it was only for that specific game. Neil, we change our moves every single bloody week. So don't worry. By then, we would have forgotten about it. Okay, moving on. Next game. This is the game that I agree with Casual Bias, the English game. I thought that I was sitting there and thinking, holy shit, are we going to lose this game? Like, must I Google something? Is it what's happening? That's how in-depth the storyteller went in this game. Like, I was feeling nervous already from the start. No, didn't enjoy that.
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna call this the scrum episode, because obviously Donnie Mann and his bucket hat comes in and describes how the scrum works and what the scrum means to South Africa. And the scrum is literally a symbol of unity, pulling together and getting the job done. That's what the scrum means to the Springboks and to South Africa. Oxen Chair got the flowers he deserved, obviously. What a legend, the way he just comes on and absolutely demolishes that scrum. And like Bongi said, we'll bring this up again. Obviously the English players were celebrating a lot of the small victories, but in a very, very hyped up manner. A bit more than just a high five. They were getting in our faces, cheering, screaming in our faces. And look, that's how they build. Yeah, and as you said, that's plastic energy, because now you still have to come and scrum against us. And don't get me wrong, at the end of the day, England did match us in a lot of areas in that game. Obviously we weren't the greatest, and they matched us physically in some places. It was just that scrum where we were like, listen, this is our pride and joy. Obviously, in the first half, we gave away a few scrum penalties, but second half, I think the boys just went there and said, listen, this is our pride and joy. We can't let these guys dictate. And we'll get into Jacques Nienaber's famous speech in his last episode. But like he just briefly says in that last episode, we can't let these oaks dictate our story. Not a chance. No one can dictate what we are about. And I still don't know how we won that game. I remember watching it, and I don't know how we won it. I genuinely thought this game is far gone, and I thought we were going to lose against the English in the semifinals. And I literally thought the whole week before, I was like, this game is just a bit funny in my head. Something's not right. And it played out that way, but goodness gracious me. Obviously, ice in his veins, Andre Pollard, Bongi screaming for South Africa, Kwagga Smith, dude, you're a flippin' legend as well. The whole team, just crazy to think we won that game. I don't know how. I really don't.
I think I know how. And that was the halftime speech for Rassie, or from Rassie, where he went off on the players and said, you are breaking your own promise, where you said you will leave everything out on the field. And I think that really, really riled up our boys, because our second half performance was good. Our first half was shocking. Obviously, we made a lot of mistakes in the second half as well. But I just loved the mentality that our boys came out with in that second half. The bench knew from the start, listen, we have to go out and do a job. And that's exactly what they did. I love the fact that Mani understood in Chasing the Sun, and he said, obviously, it's not a nice feeling to get subbed off, but he understood that he was struggling, and it was better for the team that he should have been taken off. And you love that. You love that because we always say you are a professional rugby player. This is what you sign up for. You have to be there for the hard decisions. If you can't step up to the plate for that game, it doesn't mean you can't step up ever. For that game, he wasn't the right choice. We saw the team selection for that game was because they played in the quarterfinal. We played a great performance. We said we're not going to switch anything, and we knew, listen, the weather might play a big part, and that's why we had the subs come on earlier than expected. And wow, what a absolutely brilliant comeback that was from us, because that is one of those games where the cliche saying from good teams figure out a way how to win comes true, because that is exactly what we did. That was a smash and grab, if you've ever seen one, grafting it out, absolute grafting it out there at the end. And you saw the defensive work rate as soon as we took the lead, defending for like our lives dependent on it. We heard it earlier where Ninaber said, act like that is your family that you're protecting. And that's exactly what they did at the end when we took the lead. So thank you, Brett.
No, it's just I'm scared I forget what I wanted to say. So like I'm trying to get into what you're saying, but I'm scared I forget what I want to say. Actually, because it reflects on the first thing you said from what you think made us win. What I think made us win, and I actually confirmed this with Franco the other day, is that in all the tests that he's played with Peter Steph Toy, the man does not talk. And when he spoke at halftime, everybody was like, what? If this man talks, you know this man means business. And he told them to up their game or piss off, in other words.
Yeah.
So that was something else.
As jy bang sê, ons wil 'n plan maak. Ja.
If you
crazy.
we'll make a plan, we'll sub you, yes. So that was intense for me. Yeah, so this episode's getting very long, and the last episode is the one that I want to talk about in depth, because in Chasing the Sun 1, I think I cried every single episode. And in Chasing the Sun 2, I cried the whole episode of episode 5 of number 5. So this one got me from start to finish. It was, yeah, you guys can go. I'll add my 2 cents at the end.
So I'll just come out and say it. Like I said to the boys earlier, like I'm still in the middle of watching the finale. I couldn't watch it last night. I was starting to watch it at work, and then obviously a lunch break's over. So then you have to go back. But I saw the first half, and obviously the episode started with the whole Bongi Manambi scandal, and we saw the mentality that the coaches and Bongi had in terms of not focusing on that, because we know we have a final to get ready for, because we know how the media is. They try and spin it, take away from what we've achieved, like we don't deserve to be there. They had a massive focus on the English media, all talking about Bongi Manambi saying this and that, and then went into depth about how we make jokes about it. But I just loved how that didn't distract our players from what the main mission is in terms of winning the World Cup. We know they brought it up earlier and said, listen, why do they want to sanction Bongi like 3 days before the final? The squad's already announced and stuff. Leave it for after the final, because now we're focusing on rugby and stuff. And I know some things are bigger than rugby, but when it actually needs a massive investigation, leave it for after the final. And I love the way that our coaches handled it in the press conference, in terms of saying, listen, we are here to talk rugby. Every time it got brought up, I think it was brought up 6 times in one press conference to one of our coaches, and he's just like, I will not comment on this. Ask me rugby questions. It was beautiful to see them backing their players, and that's obviously where Rassie came in to say, listen, I trust Bongi with my life. I'll let you guys take it further, because obviously I haven't seen the rest. I've just seen till halftime of that final.
Yeah. This episode was truly just dedicated to the fact of what these players were willing to do for us. That's literally what it was. And I think we kind of need to take a step back and actually really understand what they were playing for. we weren't, like, I'm sure this has been said 1,000 times, we weren't playing for that William Webb trophy. That was the least of our worries. Obviously, every player likes their milestones. They like what to go back to back. Obviously, that means something to them. But you could see this was about their families. This was about the country. This was about everyone yet again writing us off. And people will say, "Oh, but you were favorites." The truth is, we were not. I still don't believe we were considered favorites to win this tournament, on the basis that you had an Ireland coming in who were undefeated. They were going strong. You know, everyone thought that this is the Irish's chance, and but the French as well. The French are looking unstoppable. You obviously have the All Blacks. The All Blacks are never, ever, ever underdogs. You know, and there we sat, and it just yet again, this country is an underdog story. And obviously Rassie, obviously, and we all get caught up in the BS of this country being run the way it is, and it's tough. Like, we understand this country, and this isn't really a rugby topic, and I apologize for going a bit off topic here, but Rusty telling us, listen, don't talk crap about your country. Be proud of it, you know, make a change and fix it. Imagine those players were like, oh, but the ref did this, and this is ridiculous, and that player does that, and this player doesn't run the maul correctly. Imagine we would have ended up going out in the group stages, for goodness sake, if that was the attitude from them. So I think with Rassie saying we need to stick together, you know, there's a lot of ridiculous nonsense that goes on in this country, but we are all bigger than that, and we can get through it, and this is just a stepping stone in our path. So that's what this episode taught me is, you know, if something means something to you, you'll fight for it, and you'll fight for it like you're a dog. You'll fight for it until you get it. So yeah, I think that's, and obviously me being the emotional one on this podcast, of course I shared my tears as well. So it was such a special episode to just be a part of and watch, and yeah, fingers crossed we get number 3.
Yeah, I took a lot out of this episode. I felt so sorry for Kobus Reinach. I was looking at that TV. I'm getting emotional again, just thinking about the Oak played in the quarterfinal, in the semifinal. He was brilliant. He scored another World Cup hat trick. The Oak deserved to be in that final. Like, if there was anybody for me that deserved it, it was Kobus Reinach. Like, he was immense. And when he called in Cheslin Colby and said to him, listen, you might have to play scrum off at some point of the game if there's an injury to Faf. And he said, like, okay, cool, let's go, moving on. And then the biggest thing for me was on the Tuesday, Dion Fourie couldn't lift his arm past 90. On the Wednesday, he got it a bit above 90. He was still sitting with like a pump on his shoulder because he can't move his arm. He's pretty much at 50%. And they still backed him, still gave him a chance to play. Out of position, he came on, 77 minutes he played. A full game in a World Cup final, the oldest Springbok that there is. And to think of it, for 10 minutes of that game, he was also Springbok captain. Like, write a better script for me. I dare you. You can't.
A guy who literally wasn't considered before, you know, wasn't in any other coach's plans. And there he goes, and carry on with your point.
Yeah, no, you actually just added to what I was going to say. He wasn't a favorite the majority of his career. He went abroad because he thought he was overlooked, came back to the Stormers and Western Province, and look at him now. We probably won't see him ever again because of his injury now. But I do, however, think that is a fairy tale ending if there ever was one. I don't care about Geordie Barrett's miss kick. I don't care about anything else that happened in that game. The Brana story is, for me, the ultimate story.
Yeah, and in the first episode, we heard his mother. I think it was his mother that spoke and said, "Listen, he went over, as you said, he felt overlooked, but he never gave up on that ultimate dream." Right, and when he heard he might go over, but he has to play out of position, he still grabbed that opportunity with two hands because that is the ultimate dream. You make the sacrifice, for yourself, but and for the team, and you go out there and you still give it your all, because that is what you ultimately dream of in any form of your career. You do anything to accomplish that dream that you've set out for you since you've been a kid, and that's exactly what he did, and it fits in so beautifully, as Brevon mentioned earlier, the quote that they put out there and said, listen, whoever, they can try and write your script, but you are the director of the movie. This is your movie. And that's exactly what Dion did. His script was written as the guy that is been overlooked. He's too old now. He'll never make it. And he said, if that, this is my movie. I'm the headline. I am the main protagonist of this movie. And he became the main protagonist of all of our movies as well, with that performance that he put out there. It was absolutely sensational. And I totally agree with you. You couldn't have written a better script for a better guy, a better captain, to come in a couple of months earlier and have your first game for the Springboks, to captaining the final. It is crazy. It's enough to make a grown man cry. I'm not even a grown man. I'm a 23-year-old baby. Okay, but you would say in terms of age, I'm a grown man. And it makes you so emotional, because that is what we all dream of to accomplish in our lives, and to see someone else do it, and to really bring out that cliche thing of age is just a number. It was so beautiful. I see Brett crying, and I feel like I want to cry. It's crazy to think Brevon's not crying. I told Brevon today he cries when he sees a wet floor sign, because he knows someone can slip and fall. It's absolutely... It's sensational, and it is beautiful. And we didn't even speak about Bongi that made us cry in the quarterfinal. But we passed that now.
There's so many things that
are you guys okay? Are you happy with what was said? I'd like to move on swiftly.
Yeah,
happy.
Take us.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go.
I actually would like to read in the comment section, somebody post what your favorite parts of all 5 episodes were. I think obviously I'm getting a little frog and toad in my throat, but anyway, moving on. Thank you for watching this episode. We do love and appreciate everybody. We also want to get to 1,000 subs. That would mean the world to us. So like and subscribe, hit the bell button, and thanks for watching. Cheers, casual. Cheers, everyone. Goodbye.
Good one, boys.